Welcome to Dawn of the New Earth. My name is Morgue, and I'm revealing hidden knowledge to create a new world. And today, we're starting a new Gnostic text. Last week, we finished up with one of them, the Sophia of Jesus Christ. Today, we are diving into a new one. It's very interesting, and it is called the Three Forms of First Thought, also known as the Trimorphic Protonoia. And it has to do with the triple or triadic structure of reality, the real Trinity in terms of Gnosticism. And let me tell you, this Trinity is completely different from how you've heard about it in Sunday school. It has nothing to do with the God of the Bible. In fact, it predates the God of the Bible. The God of the Bible doesn't come until much later in terms of the Gnostic narrative, what I mean. So this is going to be very interesting indeed. And it's from the perspective of Barbelo, the first thought, the mother of the universe. This is a very interesting one and very beautiful as well. I think you guys are really going to like it. So let's uncover the truth, according to the Gnostics, about God and the Trinity in the Trimorphic Protonoia. So as always, remember, if you enjoy my work, hey, become a member. You get a lot of great stuff if you do. If you become a member, you can get access for anyone who's a member to all of my PDF downloads for free, which are detailed notes on self and inner transformation. Right now, I have 8 of them out on alchemy. You can get those all for free. And depending on what tier you're at, you can get access to our members only videos and our Discord server, etc. Remember to check out my book, Neogenesis, Dawn of the New Mind, if you want to understand how to reach higher consciousness rationally without the bullshit. And follow me on Spotify. The links to all of those things are in the description of this video. I've also made it, by the way, that if you don't want to become a member, you can just purchase my notes directly. Honestly, it's better to become a member because you'll keep getting them as time goes on. But that's there, the links in the description if you're so inclined for that. Right. So we're diving into the 3 forms of first thought, Trimorphic Protonoia. This is a Gnostic text. And as always, people say, hey, where can I read this stuff? You can read it for free on gnosis.org. These were discovered in 1945 near the tombs of Egypt. They're called the Nag Hammadi Library. And gnosis.org has all of these. You can read them for free. It's a great resource. Also, real quick, I want to give a big shout out to Sense of Saul. Thank you to Sense of Saul for reminding me about this particular text. I had completely forgotten about it, and she brought it up in I think it was last week's stream, and it's a great one. So shout out to her. She has a podcast as well called Sense of Soul. So go check out her podcast. All right, so we're going to get started. Like I said, this is called the Trimorphic Protonoia. What does Trimorphic Protonoia mean? Well, trimorphic means having 3 forms, and protonoia means the first thought of the invisible. So this is the 3 forms of the first thought of the invisible. So essentially, the 3 forms of the first thought of God. And when I say God here, I don't mean the God of the Bible. I mean the source, the ground of reality. According to the Gnostics, the God of the Bible it comes much later and is a lesser evil being, which we'll see in this particular text. So we're going to see that this first thought of God has 3 forms. It's very interesting. The thought, the voice, and the word. And it also makes 3 descents in these 3 forms. And not only that, but there's an eternal triad as well, which is like the Trinity, which you'll see. So we're going to get, like most Gnostic texts, we're just going to get started and things will fall into place. But I think it is interesting. Keep in mind that we're going from the thought, the voice, and the word, which if you think about it, it's more and more defined aspects of reality. Like thought is very abstract. Voice is a creation. Voice is creative. And the word is a very specific form of the voice. So you have from thought to voice to word, which is like different degrees or expressions of reality. So anyway, but let's just jump into this. And listen to how beautiful this is. This is one of the more beautiful Gnostic texts. I am the first thought, the thought that is in light. I am movement that is in all. She in whom the realm of all takes its stand. And notice that it's in terms of the feminine here, in terms of she, because this is from the perspective of Barbelo, the mother of the universe, who is the first thought of God, of the source, the first possible anything that you can get at all is what Barbelo is. I am movement that is in all. She is in whom the realm of all takes its stands, the firstborn among those who came into being, she who exists before all. She is called by 3 names, although she exists alone, since she is perfect. I am invisible within the thought of the invisible one. I am revealed in the immeasurable, ineffable things. I am intangible, dwelling in the intangible. I move in every creature. So let's examine this. Isn't that nice? Isn't that cool? Very cool. So it's very poetic, and it's almost like a riddle. It's almost like has a musical. It might even be a hymn. I'm not sure, but it has that note to it. It very well may be. It also sounds like a riddle, doesn't it? So we're going to break this down. We're going to decode this riddle and see what it's talking about. So first thing Barbelo says is, I am the first thought, the thought that is in light. And so this is the very first emanation of the divine source, the original anything at all that can possibly be, just a pure thought that arises before anything else exists at all. And it's in light. Now in here, light, we're not thinking about it in terms of just like physical brightness, but this is in terms of pure consciousness, or more technically, pure mind, the very bedrock of existence. And it represents, like I said, the source of all things. And the first thought is the source of all things beginning to express itself. Barbelo continues by saying, I am movement that is in all. She in whom the realm of all takes its stand, the firstborn among those who came into being, she who existed before all. So what's this talking about here? That Barbelo isn't just a static thought, it's movement. It's the process of thinking. It's the force that sets everything in motion. And when she says she's the firstborn, of course, this isn't anything physical. It's the very first expression of divinity. You could think of the one as just like a cosmic mind, and Barbelo as the first thought in that cosmic mind that begins to result in motion and is the foundation upon everything. And this is, remember, way before time and space or anything like that at all. This is the very first spark of something occurring in the foundational divine mind. Now it says she is called by 3 names. Although she exists alone, she is perfect. Now 3 is used everywhere in this particular, it's the trimorphic protonoia, the 3 forms of the first thought of the invisible. And so we're going to find 3s running out through all of this. Now 3 is a really powerful number in spiritual traditions. It's a certain level of completeness. So if you think about it, if you have 3 lines, you can form a triangle, which forms a plane. You can form a closed shape. So in essence, there's a certain completeness where 3 arises. Now, there's also, so 3s are important, and also 4s are important as well. Now, if you'll notice, 3s are typically related to motion and movement, and 4s are typically related to stability. So 3s are related to movement because they have that triple aspect of like the Hegelian dialectic of thesis, antithesis, synthesis. You have 2 things that join to create a third thing that then becomes the new. So you have thesis, antithesis that form a synthesis, a third thing, but that synthesis itself then generates an antithesis, just thus becoming a new synthesis. And the process goes on and on and on. So threes are very much about motion, has that dialectical process. It has that very waltz-like sort of feel. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Whereas fours are more stable. Fours are very sturdy. You can think of like a square or a table. Or very more particularly, if you think of the axis, a mathematical axis on a Cartesian coordinate plane, fours are very stable. And interestingly, I believe Carl Jung associates threes with being masculine and fours with being feminine. But of course, you don't have to assign gender to any of that. Doesn't matter. They're just different ways of talking about how like they're very opposite sort of. Fours give stability, threes give movement. And so he has multiple names. And what are those multiple names? Well, we're going to find out. And but what this really means, right? That she has three names, rather than them being specific names, like, oh, John and Mary. Though we can apply names to them. It's more about saying that you have, she said, okay, so she says, I have three names, although I exist alone, since she is perfect. Three names meaning three aspects. That's essentially what this means, right? So three names essentially means three aspects. She remains one unified being, though, because she's whole and perfect. So it's saying that she's one thing, but has three aspects to her, three different modes of expression. And we're going to see that this gets expressed as the thought, the voice, and the word. Now, what's really cool about this is in the voice, there's another triple. And this is really where I think we could get to an idea of like the Trinity, because she doesn't get to it in this part that we're reading tonight. We may have to get to it next time. But later on, what Barbelo says is that through her voice, she is the Father, the Mother, and the Son. So the Barbelo is a Trinity in many different ways, but in the way that we're familiar with it, Barbelo is Father, Mother, and Son, that triple aspect. And guess what that is? Remember? Thesis, antithesis, synthesis. That's what that reflects. Two poles that come together to create a third synthesized thing. Now, this is also where we can see that gender here, remember, is not related to how we culturally define it and has nothing to do with like biological sex or anything like that. This is pure energy we're talking about here. And you can see here we have Barbelo, who's called she and the mother, but she's also the father. You'll see later that she says she's the father of everything. And so we always have to keep that in mind, that it's not about how we define those things. You could think of it in terms of, like I say in many of my videos, in terms of yin and yang, or logos and eros, or hot and cold, or negative and positive. They're just different forms of energy. Just in story form, they get expressed through gender, but it's completely different from how we define it. And case in point, many systems define it completely differently. What some systems define as the masculine is the feminine, and what some systems define as the feminine is the masculine, because it doesn't matter. They're interchangeable. It just depends on what context you're using it in. Okay, so I am invisible within the thought of the invisible one. I am revealed in the immeasurable, ineffable things. I am intangible. Dwelling in the intangible, I move in every creature. So we're talking about now the three, this is the trimorphic protonoia, the three forms of the first thought. Right now, we are talking about the thought aspect. Remember, it's going to be thought, voice, and word. We're talking about thought here. So what this is saying is that she exists within the mind of the ultimate source, which is unseen, and in terms of Gnosticism, unknowable. That's what she's saying here, but that she is revealed through experiences but that it can't be fully measured or described. So we could think of this in terms of like deep mystical insights, intuition, mystical visions, like psychedelic experiences, things. This is the experiential aspect. Those, whoa, man, I'm having this, grand, I'm tripping out, man. And you're seeing fractal patterns and all this. Remember, don't do anything dangerous or illegal, and you psychedelics are not necessary to do. You can engage in meditation and plenty of other practices. But I just want to point that out, that we're talking here about how this is what she's talking about here. She's talking about being the first thought in a way where she can't be put into words, but she's in everything. It says, dwelling in the intangible, I move in every creature. And that's also something that's really important because thought isn't something that you can touch, not in a physical sense. But she's everywhere, meaning that reality is fundamentally thought. That's what she's saying. She moves within all living beings, that it's in all of us. We have the divine. It says that she moves in every creature. She's the force that moves everything, the thought that underlies existence, that underlies reality. That's what's being talked about here. So let's continue. I am the life of my afterthought that is within every power and every eternal movement, and in invisible lights, and within the powers and angels and demons and every soul in Tartarus, and in every material soul. I live in those who came into being. I move in everyone, and I enter them. I walk upright, and those who sleep, I awaken. And I am the sight of those who dwell in sleep. I told you, isn't this a beautiful text? It's really good. Reads like a song and a riddle. All right. I am the life of my afterthought that is written within every power and every eternal movement and in invisible lights. So essentially what we're talking about here is that she exists like previously in everything, but this is emphasizing that she really exists in everything, including light and darkness. Because people tend to forget about that, right? People are like, oh, God's in everything. So is God in Satan? Is God in demons? Is God in sin? Well, for Christianity, that poses quite a big problem. And if there are things that God is not present in, doesn't that mean that God is not infinite? Because there's something that he is not, thus he is limited. So true God, which is the source and not a being with a beard in the clouds, turning people into salt and getting mad at people for eating apples. True God, which is the source, which is what we are fundamentally, is in everything, including light and darkness. This is why she says, I'm within everything, the powers, the angels, the demons, and every soul in Tartarus, the highest spiritual realms, the underworld, the most material, the densest parts of existence. She's there. So, meaning that divinity isn't just found in purity and goodness, but also in the shadow, in chaos, and in struggle. I live in those who came into being. I move in everyone and I enter them. I walk upright, and those who sleep I awaken, and I am the sight of those who dwell in sleep. So I think this one's pretty straightforward. It's meaning that she's not some distant presence. We don't need a priest to intercede for us. She's walking upright means like she's got a purpose. She's here to do work. And what is that work? To bring awareness to those who are asleep, to the sleepwalkers. When people start to question their reality, to know themselves, remember that's what's always been said throughout history, Know thyself, and you will know the universe and the gods. Do you see how that's taking shape here? Because Barbelo, the first thought, the divinity is in everything, meaning it's in you, meaning it is you, not just a part of you, all of you. It's in everything, not like a little bit, not like this part here, all of it. You are it. And when you know that you are it, you wake up. This is why she says, those who sleep, I awaken. And I am the sight of those who dwell in sleep. I am the invisible one in all. I counsel those who are hidden, since I know the whole realm of all that exists in it. I am numberless beyond everyone, infinite. I am immeasurable, ineffable. Yet whenever I wish, I shall reveal myself. I am the head of all, I am before all, and I am all, since I am in everyone. Gnosticism is very badass. It's infinitely better than the interpretations that we get in modern Christianity. Here, divinity is in absolutely everything. She's unseen, but everywhere. She is thought that underlies all existence. She guides those who are hidden. In other words, those who are trying to find the truth and look beyond the surface, those who look behind and beyond the material world to the internal world, she will guide. Remember, this is metaphorical here, so she's not some external being. She is the part of you that allows you to begin to wake up. So when it's like, oh, she will guide you, it's not like, oh, I have to pray to Barbelo to ask for guidance. What it means is that when you begin to look inside, you will begin to realize what you are and realize you are it. And then that guidance will come naturally because you will know what you are. That's why it says she knows everything. And since she knows everything, she can guide those who are searching for a deeper understanding. But this is really talking about the fact that you have access to that. And this next part is very cool. I am numberless beyond everyone. And I am immeasurable, ineffable, yet whenever I wish, I shall reveal myself. I am the head of all. I am before all. I am all, since I am everyone. She's beyond counting. She's beyond quantifiable measurement. And we know that, obviously, about the nature of reality, the fundamental nature of reality. We can understand it mathematically in terms of its formal structure. Absolutely. But when we get to the experiential aspect, the quality can't be measured in terms of external properties of quantity. So first, she's infinite, and she's beyond measurement. And she is able to reveal herself. Now, this could be through flashes of insight or deep mystical experiences, things like that. Now, what I want to point out here, there's a discrepancy that I want to point out, because so in Gnosticism, it'll often say that the one, like the source, is unknowable. But isn't gnosis all about like knowing and understanding? All right, so let me see if we have time to talk about this. Okay, I'm going to discuss this real quick because I think it's important, but it's going to be short. So know that there's a lot more to this, but I don't have the full time to get into all of it. So is reality unknowable? In terms of Gnosticism, the one is unknowable, but you can achieve gnosis, which is, gnosis means knowledge, but this is more of like a divine, intuitive knowing rather than like a textbook sort of quantifiable sort of knowledge. It's an intuitive kind of knowing. So it's very different. So in terms of it being unknowable, that's kind of what it means, like, oh, you can't assign any properties to it, etc. But is that actually true? So I want to point out that in our system, in the Neo-Genian system, you can know ultimate reality, but it's very important to differentiate between formal, rational knowledge and phenomenological, experiential, really experience. You could call it knowledge. To be super accurate, it'd be more experience than knowledge, but you could call it subjective knowledge if you want, but it's experience. So there's a difference between how something is formally structured and how you experience that thing, the quality aspect of it. So if you think of light can be described in terms of wavelength and frequency and oscillation. You could write it down, but you can also experience light as color: red, blue, green, violet. And those are two different types of knowledge. One is a rational knowledge, the other is experiential. So you can have a blind person that can know the formal aspect of light in its entirety, but have never experienced the color of light. A baby experiences the color of light, but obviously doesn't rationally have any concept of frequency and wavelength and oscillation. So two aspects. Reality has two aspects: the rational understanding of its structure, its form, and the experience of its content. So in our system, in the Neo-Genian system, it's about obtaining both. Rationally, we can understand the structure of reality, but qualitatively, in terms of qualia, we need to have experiences, because the experiences can't be understood in a conceptual way. If that makes sense. I could keep going, but I'm going to stop myself because I go on tangents and I need to stop doing that. Let's continue this. But hopefully that makes sense. I just want to make that clear about this seeming discrepancy of like, well, can you know reality or can't you? Because sometimes it seems like you're saying it's unknowable, and sometimes it seems like you're saying it's knowable. In Gnosticism, ultimate reality is unknowable because you can't assign any properties to it, but you can have like a gnosis of like this intuitive knowledge of reality. In our system, you can absolutely know for the formal structure of existence, but when it comes to the experience of it, that's a different category and involves internal subjective modes of phenomenological experience. So let's continue. You need both, by the way, to reach, in our system, hyper-awareness. You need metacognition, concept networking, and phenomenological experience. Metacognition is thought thinking about itself, which is exactly what Barbelo is doing here and describing, thought thinking about itself. That's how everything arises. Concept networking, understanding how everything connects together in a rational way, and understanding that. And then phenomenological experience, that's the intuitive experiences, the mystical experiences, the feeling of interconnectedness in an experiential way. Let's continue. Okay. Let's see. I am a voice. Okay. So notice that we were talking about thought. Now she's talking about voice. Okay. So there's a little bit of a switch. There are actually three. All right. I don't want to get into that. I'm exercising self-control here of going off onto tangents. We're switching from thought to voice. Remember, we're going to have thought, voice, and word. I am a voice speaking softly. I am from the beginning. I am in silence that surrounds every one of them. And the hidden voice is in me, an intangible, immeasurable thought. It is the immeasurable silence. So let's see here. What we're talking about here is that her voice, how it's being described, isn't loud or forceful. It's subtle, like a whisper, and speaking within the silence, waiting to be heard. That means you have to be listening for it. You have to turn out all the external noise that's distracting you and turn inward to listen to that whisper in the silence that's always been there. Know thyself. Now, we will get more. Okay, let's just continue. I descended into the underworld. I descended into the underworld and shone down on the darkness. I poured water. I am hidden in radiant waters. I gradually dawn on all by my thought. I am weighed down with the voice. Through me, knowledge comes. I am in the ineffable and unknowable. So this is really powerful here, where you have Barbelo, and Barbelo is very closely associated. So in Gnosticism, sometimes you have Barbelo as the mother of the universe, and sometimes you have Sophia as the mother of the universe, and sometimes you have both. And the reason why this is, first of all, Gnosticism isn't always consistent. But the reason why this is because when you, and for those of you who have watched my channel and seen these different videos on Gnosticism, you'll notice that everything is just another aspect of everything else. So you could think of Barbelo as sort of like the higher wisdom and Sophia as like the lower wisdom. It's just like a lot of unfolding different aspects. And so in terms of this, because even in the three forms of first thought, Sophia will be introduced here. But Sophia is like a very specific aspect of wisdom. And Sophia has a daughter named Sophia Zoe. And that's the wisdom of life. And then there's also Eve of life. And they're all sort of extensions of each other. You have Sophia and then her daughter, and then Eve, which is like the human form of their different form. Remember, Barbelo is in everything. So all of these beings are different forms of Barbelo. Different expressions. Like a Russian doll situation happening here. So, but anyway, this is a really cool image of Barbelo descending into the depths, bringing light into the darkness. She says, I descended into the underworld and shone on the darkness. I poured water. I am hidden in radiant waters. Remember, water is usually associated with the unconscious. It's associated with the unconscious and also purification as well, because like baptism by water. But so water is associated with the depths of the unconscious, where knowledge lies. Your unconscious is where you have to explore to find the truth. You have to dive into the waters of the unconscious. We've been learning a lot about this when we talk about the four elements in alchemy. Water is associated with the unconscious realm, the intuitive realm, and so Barbelo is hidden in the radiant waters. That's where Barbelo is hidden, in the radiant waters. It's also associated, like I said, with purification, such as in baptism. And this is in terms of washing away ignorance here. So Barbelo is even in the darkness, hidden in the radiant waters that you have to dive in and find. And that we were just talking, think about what we've been talking about in alchemy, especially in the aspect of dissolution, which is associated with the element of water, where you dive into the water of the unconscious to face what? The shadow. Very similar idea going on here, just basically still emphasizing that Barbelo is everywhere, even in the darkness, in the waters, ready for you to find her. Your hidden wisdom. I gradually dawn on all by my thought. I am weighed down with the voice. So she's gradually appearing and gradually becoming clearer. And this voice has a weight to it. And this can mean, you can, some of this stuff you can interpret. A lot. You can interpret all of these things in the way that's most helpful to you, honestly. But one thing that we can interpret, like, what does that mean? That the voice is heavy. One way we can interpret the voice as being heavy, right? I am weighed down with the voice as knowledge isn't always easy to bear, but it brings in an awareness that changes everything. When you have higher awareness, there are more things to worry about, but it changes the way you perceive reality completely. It can be weighty. And I think those of you who have achieved higher levels of consciousness understand that. When you begin to see reality for what it is and you start seeing, oh my God, all the hate and destruction and murder and that's totally unnecessary, it can be very weighty, but it's an awareness that changes everything. Through me, knowledge comes. I am in the ineffable and the unknowable. I am perception and knowledge, uttering a voice by means of thought. I am the real voice. I cry out in everyone, and they recognize it, since a seed lives in them. Isn't that awesome? So she exists in this realm of thought, but she's in everything, and her voice resonates in everyone. But remember, it's a soft whisper in the silence, and people can recognize it because they have a seed of her within them. Meaning you have the seed of divinity in you that you can actualize. Isn't it even Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed? I love that. I am the real voice. I cry out in everyone and they recognize it since a seed lives in them. That's so beautiful. I love that. I think this shirt is very apropos, by the way. You have the flower of life that emanates from the seed of life. All right, let's see. Here's an interesting part. I am the Father's thought, and through me came the voice, the knowledge of everlasting things. I am as thought for all. I am joined to unknowable and intangible thought. I revealed myself in all who know me, for I joined everyone in a hidden thought and exalted voice, and in a voice from the invisible thought. Kind of reiterating that she's the first thought in the supreme source. In the supreme fundamental mind, she's the first thought, and through her, wisdom is expressed. The voice here is representing a revelation. Its thought is hidden. Voice, do you see the difference? Can you see thought? No. Can you hear a voice? Yes. So what's getting spoken about here, and like I said, we're going to see it goes from thought to voice to word. Where thought is invisible, voice is there if you listen. But it's in the silence that you'll find it. So you have to tune out all the distractions, all the external aspects. Stop looking out there. Stop trying to find a God out here to pray to. And look inside to the silence, and that's where you will find the kingdom of heaven is within. Let's see. It is immeasurable, since it is in the immeasurable one. It is a mystery, unrestrained by the intangible. It is invisible to all who are visible. In the realm of all, it is light in light. Beautiful way to say that this thought, this wisdom is infinite. Why is it infinite? According to this, because it comes from an infinite source. It's beyond limitation. Now, in the Neogenian system, we can understand this through the source formula. And this is what's really cool about the Neogenian system, is that you can have something that is infinite, but also knowable. So according to Gnosticism, it's kind of like, oh, you have this infinite thing and you can't know it because it's infinite. Because if you think about it, right, infinity is like 1 + 2 + 3 + 4 + 5. It just goes on and on and on. But that's linear infinity. That all changes when you understand it in terms of the source formula, which is a circle. A circle is both finite and infinite at the same time. You can point to a circle and go, look, there is one circle. It has bounds. But guess what? A circle is infinite. If you imagine a point on that circle going around the circumference, it could go on and on and on and on infinitely. And so you have a system that is infinite, yet contained. And what's cool about this is guess what happens when you have a point in motion in terms of the source formula, how we understand it mathematically. This can also be represented as waves, thought waves, waves of thought, frequencies. So here you can have infinite motion, infinite energy, but still be able to grasp it conceptually because it exists within the bounds of a circle and gives rise to frequencies. And then we know that by using these frequencies, we can build every aspect of reality from these fundamental basis waves. And we know this mathematically through the Fourier transform, which transforms frequency information into space and time information. So do you see how this matches up very well? It's very cool. This infinity that is thought and invisible, but underlies everything, very similar to what we discuss. So people caught up in the material world, distracted, they can't see it. It can't even be perceived physically at all. It is light within light. You have to look within to perceive it. Can you see thoughts? No. If you want to see a thought, what do you have to do? Well, when you dream, you kind of see a thought, but that's a thought projected. But it takes self-reflection to access this truth, this realm of thought, this realm of inner knowing. It's not out there. You're not going to find it out there anywhere. It's all in here. It always has been. We also have left the visible world since we are saved by hidden wisdom mediated by the ineffable, immeasurable voice, and the one who is hidden within us pays a tribute of fruit to the water of life. So this is also really cool and very poetic imagery here, meaning essentially we have to leave behind the illusions of the material world to truly embrace this wisdom. It's not loud, it's not obvious, it's the quiet voice for those who seek it. And the tribute of fruit, the one who is hidden within us pays a tribute of fruit to the water of life. This usually suggests like spiritual growth, offering understanding. Fruit is something that that you can consume and is nourishing. So fruit has different aspects, right? So fruit can either be something that you create, like, oh, here are the fruits of my labors. And so it can demonstrate spiritual growth. Your fruit demonstrates spiritual growth, meaning you through what you do, actions will follow. That's what one thing that fruit can also means. That's one thing that fruit can mean. But it can also mean in terms of that fruit is nourishing and that you can partake of fruit like the tree of knowledge. When you partake from the fruit of the tree of knowledge, you gain understanding of what you really are, that you are God. So you can have fruit in two meanings here, either something that you can partake to understand or the fruits of your labor. But either way here, we're having it in terms of its relation to spirituality, which is very cool. Now, what I think I'm going to do, because let's see, the next part starts to get into the sun, right? So this whole time we're talking about Barbelo, which is essentially the mother. Now we're going to get into the sun, and later on we'll also get into the father as well. So what we're going to see here, there's a lot of threes. There's going to be three descents. We can understand it in terms of the thought, the voice, and the word. And then we can also understand it in terms of the father, the mother, and the son. Thesis, antithesis, synthesis, very similar to that. Now, what's really cool too is we'll find out that Barbelo says essentially, I am the father, the mother, and the son. Barbelo is all these things. Barbelo, and so totally beyond gender. She's often referred to as she, but later on she says, I'm the father of everything. This is because it doesn't have to do with actual gender in the way that we culturally understand it. It has to do with the way that energy is used, whether it's in like a receptive, structuring way or an active, generative way, different aspects of energy. And like I said, you can use positive, negative, yin, yang, hot and cold as well. You don't have to use these gendered terms. Like even the sun, you could just call the child if you would prefer. That's what we can understand this is. It's just what is generated from a union of polarities. But Barbelo is the triple entity: the Father, the Mother, and the Son. She is all these things. So I think we're going to stop here because we're getting into the Son next, and I think this is a good place to stop. But let me know what you think. I really like this. I think you'll notice this is quite different from the other Gnostic texts that we've read. The other Gnostic texts can be quite complex and detailed in a very structured way. This has more of the feel of a song, of a riddle, of a poem. It's very beautiful. So tell me what you think. I'm curious. And what do you like better? Do you like the more laid out, systematic expression of Gnosticism, or do you like this more poetic way? You know what I've noticed as well? That usually when you have these poetic things in Gnosticism, it usually always has to do with the unification of opposites. You know, I am the Father, I am the Mother. This is Thunder Perfect Mind is another good example. I've just noticed that that's interesting. Whenever it gets into this like intuitive, sort of flowy riddle hymn, usually it seems like it has to do with this idea of being everything, opposites transcended. It's very cool. Anyway, tell me what you think. I'm curious. And remember to, become a member. If you become a member, you get access to my PDFs, which are very, very helpful. All my notes on alchemy. Check out my book, Neogenesis, Dawn of the New Mind. And follow me on Spotify. Thank you all so much. I hope you enjoyed it. And I want to give a big shout out to everyone who supports, especially Renaissance Fairy Cassidy, Angela, DB, Nusalina, Dallas, David, Sacred Moth, and everyone else. Thank you very much.